Welcome to this week's episode of Work and Travel TV. I'm Leah Bolton, and this is the show that helps adventurous types like you see the world and make money at the same time.
Oh yeah!
In today's episode of Work and Travel TV, we'll get to hear from a travel expert on working as a stage manager all over the world. Also, we will explore the newest addition to the Travel Toolbox, a great site that services young working travelers under working holiday visa programs, including Canadians going abroad and workers from overseas. And today's travel tip is stay on top of your passport validation. This week's question is sent in by Alex. He asked, I'm a bartender in Canada and I was thinking about traveling abroad, but I heard other countries don't tip. Is it true? The reality of it is, tips stand for to ensure prompt or proper service, and not all countries have adopted this motto. Instead, in some cases, they choose to pay their workers a generous wage and eliminate the tipping process, like in Australia and New Zealand, for example. The downside to that is the service can be really bad because the wage is set. If you're working at a resort or a cruise job also, sometimes the tips are pooled or included in the ticket price. As well, some countries in Asia consider tipping to be an insult. And in Vietnam, it is illegal. So you might want to do your research before deciding on a location. If you have a question about working and traveling as well, please feel free to submit your questions through the Ask Leah page through the tab at the top.
Travel tips.
Today's travel tip, stay on top of your passport validation. I don't know how many times I've run into travelers who left their passport renewal until the very last minute, and then they had to jump through all of these hoops and pay extra money for a rushed document. Also, if you want to work a year in a country and your passport is only valid for about 6 months, then you might run into a problem there. Some countries will even refuse entry on arrival, and some airlines will not allow passengers to board flights if they notice your return flight doesn't match up with the validation date. It is much easier to get your documents sorted out in your own country rather than flying to another one and scrambling not to get kicked out. Renewal is a pain and it costs money, but you'll feel better once it's done. It's just like renewing your automobile insurance. Today on Work and Travel TV, our special guest, a stage manager for LaJoy Productions, DK. DK, thanks for joining me on today's show.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So tell me a bit about where you've traveled to on the road and the places you've been to.
Primarily, I got the opportunity to go on the road with a one-man clown show. Was able to tour all over Australia, Japan, a few other places in Asia, all around the States and Canada, and had a marvelous time. So I got to meet a lot of people, got to see a lot of the world.
Tell me a bit about your job on the road, your job in particular. What does it entail?
My job as the stage manager was basically to be Gail, that's the performer's name. I was his representative in terms of making sure when we got to a venue to put the show in, that the set went up properly, that all the lights and sound were hung and in correctly, that details like having in a hotel room that was appropriate, basically all the things that you would do to manage an artist on the road.
And with all jobs out there, there's pros and cons. What are the pros to the job?
I think the biggest pro is that you're able to see the world. You get to meet a lot of people, do a lot of amazing things. And I was also very lucky to be involved in a show that affected people very deeply, made them laugh and cry, and they all really loved it. So to be able to share that with people around the world was amazing.
And how about the cons?
The cons are you're busy every day, so you're moving your show from one city to the next. You never really get a chance to visit any one place for a long period of time. You're sleeping in a different bed every night. Some of them are really nice, some of them are really not. But mostly it's, it balances off.
So how did you originally get into this? Did you fall into it? Did you take training?
It was a bit of both. I definitely took training. I went into theater in university, and I came out of that and got more into technical theater and doing work on crews and backstage. Through that, people got to know my work, and then they made different offers to me. But you kind of have to, in my case, I chose the kind of work I wanted to do, and then the different avenues opened up to me, whether that was working in town or out of town.
Cool. So for the audience members out there, what do you suggest if they want to do what you've done? Courses they can take, shadow someone?
It really depends where you are. If you're interested in theater and this kind of work, then you kind of there's two ways to get started. One, you take courses, you get involved that way. You can also get involved originally through community theater groups. And that's actually a really good idea is to shadow somebody. If there's somebody in the community doing the kind of work that interests you, go to them and offer to volunteer for them, that say that you want to learn. And most people are willing to take somebody on and go, okay, here's an opportunity, you can help me with this or that. And by watching, you'll figure out which part of the larger picture of theater that really interests you, whether that's staying behind the stage and figuring out things that way, or perhaps being a performer.
So once they have the training and they want to travel, what comes next?
There's certainly a great way to start and get into travel. So you end up starting more locally than nationally or internationally, but is with children's theater. Children's theater is always looking for people to work with them and to take tours locally around your province or state or wherever you are. And then those children's theater companies start doing more. They have a hit show. Lots of theaters across the country pick it up, or across America, and then you're able to tour on a broader scale.
Awesome. Thanks again, DK, for joining us on this week's episode of Work in Travel TV.
You're very welcome.
The Travel Toolbox.
Today we'll be taking a look at worktravellearn.com, a great site that services young working travelers under working holiday visa programs, including Canadians going abroad and workers from overseas. There are 3 components to the company: work, travel, and learn. Head on over to the Travel Toolbox page. The latest site will be posted with a link at the top of the list. Let's check it out. So click on Work, Travel, Learn. Pretty cool site. It's for people mostly who are heading to Canada, not the other way around, but there's some useful tips as well. So if you want to travel to Canada or any other country, it's going to take a bit of money to start up, especially for visas and that sort of thing. So if you're looking for a company that's going to help you get set up, find work, find accommodation, give you tips on where to travel, they also have discounts. This is a great site to go to. There's a tab, planning your trip, housing information, and asking questions. Working, now they have different tabs here. The catch to Work, Travel, Learn is, of course, it's a membership site. So if you're finding work and looking through the job board, you need to have a membership. Young Workers Essential membership and Casual Workers membership. Now, in the long run, you're going to save money anyways, and you're going to have to do most of this stuff. So best to just come somewhere where it's all wrapped up into one little package. Traveling, also a cool tab, West Coast to East Coast. It'll give you pictures, what's going on, the highlights, that sort of thing as well. So West Coast to East Coast, other highlights, day trips, book a trip. Learning, if you can't speak English, great place to go to. There's workshops for that. Calendar of events and workshops, news, stories to tell if you have one, and a blog as well. So Work, Travel, Learn. Check it out. So there you go. You can find the site in the Travel Toolbox page, where it continues to grow every single episode. Work and Travel TV will be your one-stop shop for all of your travel tips and landing that travel job. That's it for today's episode of Work and Travel TV, the show that helps adventurous types like you see the world and make money at the same time. In the next episode of Work and Travel TV, we'll be speaking with another expert, and we will have a new addition to the Travel Toolbox, as well as another useful travel tip for your journeys. We're here to give you the ins and the outs to help you find that perfect job out there. I'm Leah Bolton, and thanks for watching.